Well, Dan Sodergren is a digital marketing and technology expert. He's with me, but also Kathy Nibbs is a human behavioural technologist, child trauma psychotherapist and author. Good morning to both of you. Good to have you with us. Dan, first of all, I'll come to you. Facebook at 20. How has it changed over the years?
Well, yeah, Facebook is the grandfather of social media, and one of the ways it's changed, of course, is it's now at something like 3 billion monthly users. I think this is like 8 billion people on the planet. 4 billion people have internet connection, and most of them seem to be on Facebook. It's the biggest app in the world. If it was a country, it'd be, I think, the third largest country in the world as well. But it hasn't had it all its own way, of course. It brought in things like the like button and all these other things that are now kind of common parlance in social media. But if we're honest, it's also had its massive problems. So, of course, we sometimes forget Cambridge Analytica. It was a real thing. And, of course, Facebook was accused of allowing people to sway elections. And you could even say, it affected how people voted in Brexit and other things. So it's, it's not just the younger generations that are affected by how badly it moderates itself, but also, much older as well. So, yeah, Facebook has not only got bigger and bigger and bigger, it's had more and more problems, but as you also say, it's made more and more money.
Indeed. Well, let's bring in Kath Nibbs here. Kath, we heard there just the clip of the CEO in front of families of victims of online abuse. You've written a lot about exactly this thing. Tell us what you found.
I have. And good morning, Fiona. Thank you for having me. It's, wow, what a large, complex question. I would certainly say what I've found over the years are the harms that children are exposed to, and this goes all the way down to the ages of about 4 or 5 children that I work with, can be large-ranging, broad, and it's particular to the child and their abilities, vulnerabilities, social status, whether they have parents who take an active role in their online activity, their education, etc., etc. So it's a really, really broad and complex question. It's not really something you can say children are exposed to this number of harms at this age.
I wanted to ask you while we have you on, actually. This morning, the mother of murdered teenager Brianna Jaya was on Laura Kuenssberg programme. She's called for the government to stop children having access to social media apps on their smartphones. She called the internet the Wild West. She said it was just not doable for parents to check what children were seeing online. Do you think this is something that would work or should be done?
Professionally, I don't think it will work now, because we now live in a society where technology is ubiquitous, it's not going away, and we have a societal problem, not just a parenting problem and not just a tech problem. And I suspect that what we need to do is think about parenting, and we need to think about tech's responsibility and what the government can do. And at the moment, it's a very, very volatile space between those cohorts of people. So it makes it very difficult when we're not having shared conversations and understandings. And I think it's made more difficult by the language that we use in this space, which tends to be clickbaity, scaremongering, and often doesn't look at the research in a really detailed way.
Interesting. Dan, I'll bring you back in here. I mean, they wield great power, don't they, the social media companies? Where do you think they should be going in terms of what responsibility they have for that?
Well, it's a tricky one, of course, because, of course, technology providers, remember, it's user-generated content that makes Facebook so big.
Yeah.
And the same with all social media. And so you could argue it's the fact we're on it. If you're not buying a product on the internet, you are the product on the internet. They're simply rehashing data, and it's not really their responsibility what we do in a social media moment. But of course, at some point, it has to be somebody's responsibility a little bit. And of course, we've got to think about the future. And of course, Facebook moving more into the metaverse and virtual reality and these new kind of ways of thinking and ways of being online. Somebody somewhere has to be the police for this moment. There has to be a police. Now, the issue, of course, is that Facebook being bigger than nation states makes it very, very hard to control, which is why, large packs like Europe have a much better job of doing it than individual states. But the next bit, of course, will be the future. And the future of social media will have to be policed. My guess is it will be done by artificial intelligence, because it's the only way that you can bring in that vast quantity of ability. It would only be able to done by computers. And that, of course, then brings in a whole other thing, which is, with artificial intelligence, who monitors the artificial intelligence. Now, Facebook are very clever because they're about to give away their artificial intelligence for free, and so they could disrupt a whole industry. But I think the lady's absolutely correct. This is a social problem. It's also a political one. I really would love our political leaders to do more against these large tech giants, not on the principle of trying to squish them economically, but just morally, because they do make money at the moment out of a lot of people's pain. So I think there is something that can be done, whether it will be done by Mark Zuckerberg or by the bosses of the tech companies who get paid large large share amounts. I don't know if you just heard, Facebook have just announced the largest dividend, or their first dividend, which actually makes them the most successful company in one day ever from a stock market point of view. Wow. So the irony of those two things clashing is quite apparent.